Hello, and welcome to Freedom 101 with Adam Speaks. This is my brand new show brought to you to teach you and help you get to the next level of freedom in your life. Now, for a very long time, we've been controlled, imprisoned, fined, injured by the quote-unquote power that be. And what I'm here to do is I'm here to actually give you some tools, some strategies, and some armor to protect yourself when you haven't actually committed an actual crime. Now, what am I speaking about? Today I'm going to be talking about driving versus traveling, okay? Now that's something that you probably haven't heard about before, but I'm going to give you a little known secret. The whole time you've been thinking that you're driving a motor vehicle, you actually have been traveling. And there's a huge difference between driving and traveling, okay? The reason why I bring this issue up is because if you don't understand the rules of the game, if you don't understand the tactics, the strategies, the methods used to actually control you and control us, then you can never properly defend yourself and you could never be truly free. Now, the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, guarantees only two types of courts. One court is called a criminal court, and then you have another court, which is called a civil court. Criminal deals with crimes, civil deals with breaches of contracts, and so on and so forth. Now, today we have another court, which is called traffic court, that I'm sure we've all been to or know someone who's been there. If the Constitution only guarantees two types of courts, which is criminal and civil, then where does traffic court fit under? It doesn't fit under either of them. It's a fraudulent court, but I will explain as I go further. Now, to actually understand what these words mean, driving, traveling, etc., you have to actually look them up in the Black's Law Dictionary, which is the dictionary that the lawyers, judges, legislators, etc. use to govern you. A lot of the times, the words that we think of that are English words are not actually the same in the law society. Take, for instance, the word understand. When the judge asks us, okay, these are your charges, do you understand? He's actually not asking you, do you comprehend? What he's actually asking you is, do you stand under my authority? So what he's trying to do is get you to agree to his jurisdiction or to agree to his authority unknowingly through these words of art, okay? Now, I've done the research for you. If you look up driving in the Black's Law Dictionary, it says this. Driving is a commercial activity, okay? Driver, one employed in conducting or operating a coach. Well, again, one employed in conducting or operating a coach, carriage, wagon, or other vehicle with horses, mules, or other animals, or bicycle, tricycle, or motor car, though not a street railroad car. See Davis or Petronovich. As you see, the definition right there says someone who is employed. Taxi driver, limo driver, etc. Those people are actually driving. But if you're going from point A to point B, from your house to the grocery store, that's only traveling. There's a huge difference. And the power that be, or the people who govern you, count on you not knowing the difference, okay? Now, let's look up the term motor vehicle, okay? Motor vehicle means every description of carriage or other contrivance propelled or drawn by mechanical power and used for commercial purposes on the highways in the transportation of passengers and property or cargo. So as you can see, driving a motor vehicle exclusively means employed on the highways for commercial purposes. It means that you're actually making money. So if you're not a taxi driver, a limo driver, a cab driver, etc., a truck driver, you do not need a driver's license because you are not driving, you are only traveling. Now, legislators, police officers, court officials, they're starting to become aware that there's court decisions that disprove the belief that driving is a privilege. It's not a privilege because we're allowed to travel. And therefore, we aren't required to obtain a license to travel, only to drive. But we have to know the difference between the two, okay? Now, just so you know that this isn't my opinion, I'm going to give you some U.S. court cases and Supreme Court cases that actually back up exactly what I'm saying. The only reason why we don't know this is because we don't do our own research. Now, one of the cases says this: the use of the highway for the purpose of travel and transportation is not a mere privilege, but a common fundamental right of which the public and individuals cannot rightfully be deprived. That's Chicago Motor Coach versus Chicago, Supreme Court case. Another one: the right of a citizen to travel upon the public highways and to transport his property thereon, either by carriage or by automobile, is not a mere privilege which a city may prohibit or permit at will, but a common law right which he has under the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's Thomas v. Smith. Another one: the right to travel is a well-established common right that does not owe its existence to the federal government. It is recognized by the courts as a natural right. How much more clear can it be? We just don't know. And they make lots and lots of money off of us through tickets, through fines, through imprisonment, because we do not know this information. Are you starting to understand why knowledge is power? American citizens do have the inalienable right to use the roadways unrestricted in any manner as long as they are not damaging, violating, or injuring the property or rights of others. Government, in requiring people to obtain driver's license and accepting vehicle inspections and DUI, DWI roadblocks without question, is restricting and therefore violating the people's common law right to travel. Okay? Now, you have to ask yourself a question. If the states have been enforcing laws that have been unconstitutional this whole time, on its face, as you see, it's unconstitutional to enforce what they've been enforcing. It would seem that there must be some way that the state can do this, some way that the state can put requirements or mandatory insurance or vehicle registration or inspections. There has to be something that allows them to do this. For the answer, let's look at the U.S. court's determination. Again, okay? In Hurtado versus California, 110 U.S. 516, the U.S. Supreme Court states very plainly, the state cannot diminish rights of the people. Another, statutes that violate the plain and obvious principles of common right and common reason are null and void. Another one, where rights secured by the Constitution are involved, there could be no rule making or legislation which would abrogate them. It clearly states, the claim and exercise of a constitutional right cannot be converted into a crime. And there could be no sanction or penalty, tickets, fines, imposed upon one because of the exercise of constitutional rights, which is the right to travel. Okay? Now, can a government legally put restrictions on the rights of American people at any time for any reason? For the answer, let's look at the actual Constitution. Now, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, okay? Now, the Constitution says this: this Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance of, shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. They are bound by the Constitution. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary, not one word withstanding, which means that anything that is not congruent with the Constitution does not stand. In the same article, it says just who within our government that is bound by the supreme law, or who is bound by the Constitution, okay? It says this. It says the senators, the representatives before mentioned, and the members of the several state legislators, and all executive and judicial officers, judges, both of the United States and of the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support the Constitution. Okay? Now, some of the confusion on our present system has arisen because many millions of people have waived their right to travel, unrestricted, and volunteered into the jurisdiction of the state unknowingly. Okay? Because of our lack of knowledge that we actually have a right to travel, we volunteered ourselves by contract with the state to be under their jurisdiction. Okay? Now, the reason why this is not illegal or they haven't been sued on a mass scale is because we actually agreed by contract, okay? By accepting a driver's license or vehicle registration, so on and so forth, we have contracted with them, and we have given them our jurisdiction, given them jurisdiction over us unknowingly by contract, because no court or judge has a right to interfere with our right to contract. We have a right to contract. And if we contract our rights away, that's our fault for not knowing. Understand? Now, but what percentage of the people in each state, have applied and received a license or registration and insurance after erroneously being advised that the government said that it was mandatory? Everybody. So this entire time they've been telling us that this has been mandatory when it's actually not. We just have to really, really do our own research in order to protect ourselves and defend ourselves, okay? Study, study, study. Do your own research. I beg you not to believe everything I say word for word, but in order for you to have clear understanding, do your own due diligence and your own research to understand what I'm saying so that you will be able to protect yourself in these courts, okay? Now, every police officer is, no question, has a duty to uphold the Constitution and your right to travel, okay? And they also need to keep this following in their mind, this following Supreme Court case, okay? For every police officer, the claim and exercise of a constitutional right cannot be converted into a crime, such as a ticket, a fine, imprisonment. So as we have seen throughout this video, traveling freely, going about one's daily activities, is only an exercise of the most basic right, the freedom to travel. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Liberty means freedom of travel, freedom of movement. If one movement is restricted, that means he's being held in slavery. And we have to open our eyes, because slavery is not physical anymore, it is mental. It is done bureaucratically through these statutes and codes that aren't actual laws. But that's another video. And last but not least, there can be no sanction or penalty imposed upon one because of the exercise of these constitutional rights. Okay? Again, thank you for watching this brief video on driving versus traveling. I'm going to be having a series that's going to be coming out every single week with new topics teaching you how to defend yourself. And be sure not to forget my book, The Truth, the Whole Truth, and Nothing But the Truth About What They Don't Want You to Know, is coming out very, very shortly. Stay tuned, and thank you very, very much.